To apply to a school you don't want to go to is a waste of time, it's a waste of effort, it's a waste of money. And it makes no sense, right? Especially when you realize there are a lot of options for a quote unquote safety school. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. My name is Thomas Caleel. I'm the former director of MBA admissions and financial aid for my alma mater, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. In this podcast, I don't promise easy answers or quick fixes, but I will use my decades of experience to help you achieve your education goals. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Admittedly podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Caleel. We're getting well into season 4 here, and today we're going to talk about safety schools. What are they? What do the results mean? And how should you think about them? So first of all, parents are all thinking, oh, safety schools. I remember safety schools when I applied to maybe like 6 or 7 schools total, and there were like 2 or 3 that I just kind of threw an application at just because. And things have changed considerably, right? For seniors these days they're applying to up to 20 schools in the Common App. It's a very different scenario. They might be applying to the UCs. And so this concept of safety schools becomes very, very, very important. And first of all, let's define what is a safety school. So a safety school is kind of a fallback school. It's a school where you're like, okay, I'm not thrilled to go there, but I will go there and I could have a good time. I'll learn what I need to learn. Not my first choice. I might try and transfer out. There's a little bit of danger in this thinking, and I want to just kind of pause for a minute and think about this, right? Because a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, okay, I'm going to just apply to these, 3-4 safety schools. And I'll say, great, what do you like about them? And they're like, yeah, I really don't. And I really don't want to go there if I'm being honest with you. And so the question that I have really is, well, then why are you even applying? Right? So to apply to a school you don't want to go to is a waste of time, it's a waste of effort, it's a waste of money. And it makes no sense, right? Especially when you realize there are a lot of options for a quote unquote safety school, right? So let's take an obvious one, community college. Now, I know before you get all upset about community college is a great option. And a lot of times going to a community college can really help you stand out, right? So instead of going to a low ranked school that you've listed as a safety school and trying to transfer out of there, which is actually very, very hard, you can go to a community college. Community college they send a lot of students to good schools. And in certain states, there are transfer agreements legally where you have preferred access to top schools. Let's take California, for example. If you go to a community college, you have preferred status applying to UCLA and Cal, and then as well the other UCs, but you're guaranteed a spot at one of those UCs or a CU campus. So you're in a really powerful position. You can also go to a community college and transfer into many times like an Ivy League school, right? Because you're able to stand out, you're able to do some different things. And if you want to play the game and be strategic, you can go to a community college that might even have a preferred relationship with that Ivy Plus and try and work your way in that way. Now, it doesn't always work. The schools aren't stupid. They see you coming, right? But if you are a local student, oftentimes going to the community college first saves you a lot of money, and it puts you in a very preferred position for some of these top schools that you might not get into first time as a freshman. So, community colleges, you can think about maybe if you get into like the UC or UT system or the Penn State system or the New York SUNY system, going to a school that might not be your first choice and then working your way over in a transfer to a school that is your top choice. There's a lot of alternatives and a lot of options here, right? You can also take a gap year. So just throwing yourself at a low-ranked school because it's a safety school, not a smart idea. Here's the other thing. And now this has become very, very traumatic for a lot of my students. And I want to stop and talk about it, right? A lot of times schools that are viewed as safety schools, right, where students and parents are like, oh, my child is totally overqualified for that school and they should get in. And I see this a lot in the comments too, and people just indignant and upset, and really knocks them off center when a school that they consider to be a safety school rejects them. Why does this happen? Well, it happens because of yield management most times, right? The schools are not dumb, right? They look at patterns, they analyze patterns, and they say, okay, Thomas is applying. We get applications every year from the school he goes to, and we've never yielded anybody, or we yielded one person and they transferred out a year later, right? So they understand, hey, we're a safety school for this high school. We're a safety school for these guys. Why would they want to admit me? They don't, right? They'd rather admit somebody who's like, hey, I like your school. I want to be at your school. Nothing would make me happier. I've worked really hard to earn my way into your school. Please let me in so that I can demonstrate and really dig in and get everything out of your school. And so that's what they want. They want students that are happy to be there. They want students who are engaged. They want students who really are going to come and thrive and try their hardest. So what the schools do is they look at your application and they do a little bit of probability analysis. And they say, okay, what's the probability that this person will matriculate or enroll? And then they kind of say, if it's low, they might defer you, they might waitlist you, or they might say, look, there's no way this person is coming and we're just going to deny them. Is it 100% correct every time? No. And they may lose a few students that way. But the reality is that it's much easier on them, because admitting students that they're pretty sure are not going to come and then watching their class melt, and then students that wanted to come have already committed to another university and then they might not come. It's a whole trickle-down effect, right? And remember, I've talked about this multiple times, but everything the school does is in the school's best interest, just like the school assumes that everything you do is in your best interest. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to frame all of this in that context. So when schools decide, for example, especially safety schools, to defer you, and this year we've had a lot of deferrals, a lot of very angry people in the comments pushing back on me on this and saying, well, why don't they just admit me because I'm overqualified? First of all, there's no such thing as overqualified, right? You are either qualified or not for what the school wants that year. And many times in admissions, a school will look at a student and say they have the grades, they have the test scores, they clearly do not have the commitment or the desire or the intent to be here, right? Now, I have gotten the question, well, what if I really want a school that would seem like a safety school? In that case, demonstrated interest matters. I want you, if you can, to visit. I want you otherwise to be online, attending the information sessions, reach out to the school, see if you can interact with your regional representative or a member of the admissions committee, and really show them, hey, listen, I really want to go to your school. And I want to go to your school because of this specific reason. And you need to articulate your reason. You don't need to make up something fancy or crazy, right? You need to tell the truth. And in telling the truth, you're going to distinguish yourself and you're going to resonate. If they have an early program, a binding program, apply during that. That definitely shows, hey, I'm here, I'm committed, I want to do this, right? Sometimes a lower ranked school will have a truly unique program. And I've had students say, that's the program that I want. How do I convince them that I want that program? And so a lot of it is just outreach, interacting if you can with professors, interacting with admissions, and demonstrating and building that intent to attend. And it will resonate, right? So as we think about safety schools, we only want to think about those schools that we would attend, right? I think we want to be clear-eyed about that. We don't want to include schools on the list where you have no intention of going, because why would you do that, right? Think creatively. I want you to think about, when you think about safety schools as well, there is a world out there. And a lot of American students get very caught up in like just thinking about the 50 states in the US, right? You can get a great education a lot of places. I mean, you look at Canada, you look at Australia, you look at Europe. There are phenomenal opportunities there. Asia. There's a lot going on in terms of great education around the world. So if you're looking for a school where you're like, hey, you know what, this would be an interesting alternative, think broadly, because they may not see a lot of highly qualified American applicants. And so for them, you might be a bit of a novelty and have a little bit of an edge in the admissions process. When you think about like Hong Kong, Shanghai, Buenos Aires, Santiago, there are great opportunities out there for you to get a world-class education. So don't just get stuck in smaller state schools, right? And as always, and especially when it comes to safety schools, return on investment, right? I get very upset when I see private colleges that are charging tuition that is not that much less than a school like Harvard, because you are never going to be able to pay that back if you're just going a traditional working route. Okay. And that's very, very, very important. So if you get into a quote unquote safety school and you get a lot of money thrown at you and you can essentially attend for free, okay, well, that's a very different conversation. And that's something where you look at it and you say, you know what, I can get a good education here. I can do really well. I can make the most out of my summers and extracurricular activities and slingshot myself into a great graduate program. Well, then, okay, now we're talking. And that makes a lot of sense. So I would urge you to reframe the way that you think about safety schools, rethink the definition. Parents, I want you to think carefully about long-term education goals, right? And so a school that might not look as glamorous or glitzy on its surface might actually be incredibly powerful for your student if we dig into the individual programs and the opportunity to kind of advance from that point. Think globally, think creatively, think in 3 dimensions. There are certainly even online schools that are coming into prominence right now. Think about what fits your lifestyle and goals best and go from there. And then when you do get denied from some of your quote unquote safety schools, don't panic, okay? Take a deep breath, understand that they are making decisions in their best interest, not in yours, and it might hurt your feelings, it might crush you a little bit, especially because traditionally the quote-unquote safety schools release their decisions at odd times. And so a lot of times I'll have students who are waiting for their first choice schools, for example, and they'll get denied from a school that was almost like an afterthought when they applied, and they lose it. And they're like, oh my God, if I can't get into my safety school, I'm not getting in anywhere. And I'm like, just breathe. Let's breathe together and let's realize that they knew you didn't want to come. And so they made the best decision for them and cut you loose. So it has no impact on your other schools. It has no bearing on the other programs that are going to love you and admit you and celebrate you. So we have a long admission cycle coming up. We're going to be working on this together, me talking about this. Really do invite you to engage with us on social media at AdmittedlyCo on Instagram and TikTok. Drop some comments in. Tell me what you think about safety schools, how you think about safety schools. Join us in our webinars. It's something that's definitely going to come up. We're definitely going to talk about it. So look forward to continuing this conversation. I know this topic is very top of mind for a lot of you, and look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the Admittedly podcast and download this episode. I welcome you to share your thoughts and questions with me. You can find us on social media at Admittedly Podcast. I look forward to continuing our journey together.